I don't know what's going on, or it's going on. Whatever's going on, it's going on. What's going on? You know what's going on. I know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. It's the Artie and Danny Show.
Welcome, everybody, to the show. With me is my intrepid co-host and traveling companion, Dancing Dan, the Dancing Man. Hope everybody's having a good day today. I am having a low-energy last 10 hours, but I think we're going to be okay. So Dan's idea tonight was to talk about the General, the wargaming house organ of Avalon Hill, and I thought, yeah we could talk about that for 2 minutes and then talk about random shit for the other 28. So, oh, hell, I didn't even know that was on. Thank you, Lord Cost 2000, for subscribing to somebody's channel. Not sure whose it was. I assume it's mine. That's a machine gun sound effect, Dan. Just in case you didn't know. Weak. Anyway,
I love it.
The General. Yeah, so I mean, I'm fooling with the camera. We still got a big mess over here, and I still don't have the game room done. We'll do a game room video when the game room's done. That'll be awesome because then I can have games in my game room. That would be splendid.
You know, I'm actually having a smoking room created right now.
Is it going to be the game room too?
Sure.
Okay, that's some enthusiasm I hear coming from the wilds of Montreal.
Sure.
So, yeah, no smoking in the house down here. So
okay,
that's just the way it works.
Funny. I mentioned the General magazine because I'm a fan. I'm a fan.
Oh, it's a great magazine as long as you played Avalon Hill games.
Yeah, well, I'm an Avalon Hill fan, I guess. And the thing is that I must have about 100 General magazines all wrapped
that's
up.
More than I got. I got
really?
About 6. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. And I've got them all wrapped up in plastic, and I just enjoy this Avalon Hill stuff, man. And you know what? I wish, for some reason, I'm attracted to Paper Wars from Compass Games. I'm attracted to that magazine, but I just can't afford it, man.
Should have come to Compass Expo. You could get them all for $15 to $30.
Yeah.
Each, of course. But some of them were as low as 15. They probably had 20, 25 different issues. I bought about 3 of them.
Did
myself.
You?
Yeah.
Which ones did you get?
Are they in here? No. There's one about Central Asian steppe conflicts in the wake of this Russian Civil War. That sounded so interesting that I had to have it. There's one on the Finnish Civil War, and I forget what the third one was. This is true. What do they want for your average back issue of the General? Because it shouldn't go for a ton of money. $4, $4 or $5 maybe.
Yeah,
like that.
The thing is, I was looking for, and it's funny, I was looking for the volume 1, number 1 type thing, and I think it was going for $35, $40.
Yeah, but that's not bad, really, considering it's from 1965.
I know, but it just looks like crap.
Oh yeah, it was very small press back in the day. So it's okay if we talk about this and get demonetized, but yeah, you could get them all electronically pretty much.
Yes, you
can.
It's
a bit of a pain in the ass unless there's something specific you're looking for and you just want one issue. Generally speaking, I don't mind having stuff in electronic. In a lot of ways, I prefer having stuff in electronic format. Obviously, not the game components for war games. That's a bit difficult, but
yes, Carl. We just mentioned it. What are you not listening?
of dubious legality, but
What are you not listening?
it's out there. So Magnus from sunny Sweden, how's it going? Hope you're having a good
Talk,
day today. Hope
talk,
you're living COVID free.
talk.
See, this isn't too bad, but remember they published
No.
this general for like 40 years. So I don't know what the actual number is, but it's a lot. Sort of like buy them all would be quite a bundle of money, but you know, you buy a couple here and a couple there, and sooner or later you got a whole shelf full of the damn things. So yeah,
What?
this is highly illegal and ought to be reported to eBay, frankly.
Yeah, you give that guy a break. He's making a couple of bucks.
Yeah, off of somebody else's property.
Yeah, right.
Not a fan of that practice. Somebody putting
No,
ancient
artist.
out good
I
stuff
should
up
be,
for free.
I'm at the forefront.
I don't really have a moral hang up on that, but for somebody to then try and make money off of it, that's troublesome.
You know what I said, Carl? I said
You could get them through Wargame Vault. I didn't know that. Obviously, I don't pay enough attention to Wargame Vault. That much is clear.
Well, hold on. Did he buy like photocopies of it, or did he actually buy?
Well, all they're going to be is scans. I mean, you buy the old D&D modules from Drive-Thru RPG, which is the same entity, by the way, as Wargame Vault, and that's all they are. It's they sat in their garage. Somebody sat in their garage and scanned an old D&D module, and up it went. Right?
No, Christopher, go to Noble Knight. You'll get some good things, and also on eBay, you'll get some general magazines, which are fine.
Well, you might be able to get lots of, they might have print on demand versions if you really want, if you don't care if they're the original printings or not.
Yeah, but who gets the cash? Who gets the cash?
If it's through Wargame Vault, then I'm gonna presume that it's legit. I mean, Hasbro's gonna own the rights to that now, not necessarily to the articles themselves. I don't know how that worked, but they're going to own the rights to the magazine, and just reprinting the magazines is potentially a minefield. Because
are you sure, Mike? Mike, are you sure?
Well, you'd have to talk to Hasbro's legal department, so no, he's probably not sure. However, that is owned by One Bookshelf, which is a sizable institution on its own, and I would assume that they probably at least said, "Hey, is this kosher?" And talk to the legal people.
Hold on, Artie.
So I think it's safe to make that assumption.
You're talking about Wargame Vault is owned by a serious institution?
One Bookshelf is the parent company. Yeah, they also own Drive-Thru RPG and whatever the D&D thing's called, and Drive-Thru Fiction and Drive-Thru Dildos, whatever else they're making now. I don't know. But yeah, they have they're the kind of your one-stop shop for PDF RPG stuff, which is kind of a booming market and has been for quite a while. Well, yeah, so they're partners with Hasbro, so they better, right? They do all that D&D stuff through Hasbro, through whatever the D&D thing's called. Now that may change when Hasbro decides they want to do the whole D&D as a service thing. But frankly, that's beyond the scope of this conversation, this channel, and my interest level. So
it's the first time I hear of One Bookshelf.
That's just the name of the parent company. Drive-Thru RPG is the better known. You got to do something. What do you live in a fucking swamp up there or what?
The goddamn the fruit flies.
Get rid of the fruit. I
don't need any fruit.
Well, obviously the fruit flies. There's fruit somewhere in the room, Dan. I don't know where it is. Is that a fruit beer you're drinking? One of those fruit beers?
It's probably the beer cans I have lying around.
Oh, Jesus. That's gross. No wonder.
Wait, come on. You don't have any beer cans lying around?
No, I don't really drink beer.
Well, that's why you don't have any beer cans lying around.
I'd be asleep right. This is me after drinking a beer.
Jesus Christ. Grow up.
Asleep. I drink scotch. I don't need beer.
Hey, I just had a rare cask Macallan just a few minutes ago. So don't talk to me about scotch.
Rare cask. Is that the one
without the age? $400 a goddamn bottle.
Was it $400? Was there an age statement on the goddamn bottle?
Yeah.
What was the age statement?
It was $400 age statement.
No, what was the age statement on the bottle?
Yeah, you shut up.
This is Canadian money anyway. That's like $22 American money. So Fire and Movement might make more sense. I'm a little unclear as to who might hold the rights to that. Fire and Movement and Moves, both of which were really good magazines. Actually, I do have a handful of issues of all three magazines: Moves, Fire and Movement, and the General, and a few. What was it called? Zones of Control. That was John Kisner's magazine. Very very small press on that. What was it? Operations was the Gamer's old magazine. I had a couple issues of that. Dan's got more issues of the General than I do.
I'm happy. I'm very happy. Ask
Well,
me how many I read.
Well, you got to start somewhere, right? I mean,
That's
there's
right.
the having and then there's the doing, right?
Yeah.
I get to try to do both.
Like, it's funny,
Poorly, but
Artie, one of my friends has the first edition English printed version of the Lord of the Rings, right? And they're
first
worth
the
like,
book.
yeah, they're worth like 30 grand.
Yeah, that sounds approximately correct.
Right. And the thing is, he was talking about selling them today, and I said, don't sell them. Don't you just like looking at them as you're having a beer or a scotch, and you look
I
at
could
your
buy a
three
$20 set that I could also
And
look
he-
at on the shelf and
and he
then have
said,
30 grand.
he said I could buy a sailboat. And I
Well,
thought,
if that's what you want out of life, is to buy a sailboat, I'm not going to tell you.
yeah, he's a
not
captain,
to.
so he wants to buy a sailboat.
Well, no, Captain, my captain. I just bought $300 worth of Labatt games, so what do I know? So,
But it's like looking at my generals. I like looking at my generals. I know I have them.
you look at
It's
the
like
you,
it's
you
a
buy them.
fuzzy wuzzy feeling,
You buy them for the articles, though, right?
Yeah.
There you go. See, that's what I'm talking about. A
Yeah.
lot of quality content in there, though. I mean, variants in many cases that folks still play with, right? There's some flat top variants in some issues. There's some stuff on Great Campaigns of the American Civil War, which of course started with Avalon Hill. War Diary's a very nice magazine.
Yes, it is.
It is primarily. So they're actually starting to publish games now too, not necessarily in the magazine, although there's been like games articles and games accessories in the magazine in the past. I've actually got a video coming up on their new game that just came out, which I might as well plug since they sent it to me.
John,
Guadalcanal, designed
That's-
by Mike Nagel. It actually looks quite nice. So.
Yeah, you know what?
Yes.
That's it's funny. In a misogynist world, that's what was missing in the general.
I'm confused.
No, you are confused. Stop drinking water.
It's probably the COVID. It's addled my brain. So, yeah, Mo got the video. I think Mo got the game first too, but I was a bit slow on the uptake on all this at this exact moment. So Mo's doing Charles S. Roberts Awards nominee. Mo is doing a fine.
He's kicking ass.
So
really,
I don't remember that, but like I said, I owned relatively few issues of the General. I won't say I never bought it. What I will say is that whatever small handful of issues of the General that I accumulated while Avalon Hill was still around, it was dwarfed by my ownership of RPG magazines. I've still got a lot of my old Dragon magazines from back in the day, just because they're hard to unload and they're absolutely shredded. But I still have a fair number of them, sans covers, of course. But not that many Generals. Still don't have that many. Somebody dumped like 6 or 10 issues at a convention, and I think I paid 20. I'm like, sure, I'll give you $20 for this stack of old Generals. That's basically where those are. I'm not even sure. They're here somewhere.
And the D&D magazines you have, who are some of the contributors? Steve Jackson?
No, I can't recall any Steve Jackson articles. Ed Greenwood was a longtime contributor to Dragon back in the day. Of course,
Which is cool.
During various periods, Gary Gygax would write stuff, and then he'd get
which is really cool.
And that didn't happen after that. Roger Moore, other Roger Moore, right? Who I think passed away recently. I could be wrong about that. These are some of the names that I remember. Catherine Kerr, who's a fantasy novelist now. I recall some very good articles in Dragon from her. I was a bigger so by the time I got into wargaming, right, it's the very early 80s, and and I'm like 10, right? Purchasing power is negligible, right? But by the time, I had a little bit of money, SPI was gone. And therefore, as the 80s went on, and Phil Foglio, Phil's still around too. But yeah, Steve Jackson did write for the Space Gamer and took it over when he left metagaming on bad terms.
So
And kept it going for a decent amount of time, actually. And then they did a GURPS magazine called Role Player, and then a fancier magazine called Pyramid for a while, and then that went online, and then they don't even do that anymore. They have no interest in games that aren't Munchkin anymore.
is Artie is Phil Jackson, Steve Jackson. Is
Phil
he,
Jackson, with former coach of the Chicago Bulls, is that who we're talking about?
It's because I saw Phil and whatever, Dr. Phil, whoever. Steve Jackson, is he? Look, man, he's one of the pioneers of all this stuff. Is he still taken seriously today?
I mean, Steve Jackson, I'd certainly consider Steve an iconic game designer.
Absolutely.
Not so much for our space for war games, although he has done a few.
I mean, Ogre.
But sort of as a general, sort of a broader palette game designer than we typically deal with in the wargaming space. Although you might be surprised to find wargame designers that have done RPGs. Eric Goldberg, for example, John Butterfield. Both these guys did RPGs, for example. So, you might be surprised where these names pop. I'm not talking about just Gary Gygax. But I mean, I don't know that Steve is at this point in, gaming and as a broad phenomenon, tabletop gaming, bigger than war games and RPGs and card games and all that jazz. Steve Jackson is certainly an iconic figure, but I think he's probably best known now for the guy that runs Steve Jackson Games rather than necessarily as a designer, which is a little bit unfortunate, but I presume Steve is happy with it, swimming as he is in his swimming pool of cash.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Ogre's certainly a fine game. I personally liked Car Wars better. To what extent? I think Ogre's a little wargamier than Car Wars, but they're both a little bit wargaming.
More complex.
It got that way, but I don't know about the current edition of Car Wars. I have like the 6th edition of Car Wars, just one of the little white boxes, and frankly, that's all the Car Wars I need if I ever want to bust that out and play it. It's a good game, though. That was the context of my contact with Steve Jackson, as actually I played in a game at a Gen Con in I guess it was early 90s at Gen Con, which was a Car Wars game, which was on a arena with Matchbox cars, and it was pretty sweet. So Yagged Panther magazine was one that I've heard of but have never actually seen a copy of.
You know what? That's Gary Gruber or Gary Gruber.
Gary Graber.
Graber.
Okay.
That's his magazine.
So I think that the context here is that nobody's paying anybody to do wargame reviews anymore, right? Fire and Movement was. And you could get reviews in Paper Wars. I'm pretty sure still does review content, but that's kind of turning itself into the Compass Games magazine too, right? And can't blame Compass Games for that. So, and the Fantasy Trip, I'll be honest, I don't know why anybody. The Fantasy Trip is kind of this kludged together bag of parts that was put together, and that's not Steve's fault. That's Metagaming's fault, by the way. that you could kind of turn these 5 pieces of different games into an RP into something that looked like an RPG. And then Steve, after struggling with the rights for decades, got the rights back from Metagaming, or claimed the rights in a legal way or something like that, and did his own new version, which is basically just the old version with fancier pieces. So
Hey, Artie,
I don't, yeah.
don't I look like Londo from what's that space?
Avalon 5.
Yeah, don't I look like Londo?
Well, you got the forehead, that's for sure. But
I look like freaking Londo.
so Battles Magazine, I'm a little unclear as to what the status of Battles Magazine is. They certainly haven't done a lot of issues in the last several years. But that number's not 0 either. They published a last issue a couple of years ago, as far as I know, and I haven't heard anything about them going away. That's another magazine I've never even seen. I've also never seen. Well, I mean, I've seen it on the shelf at Origins, but I've never actually looked at a copy of Ya magazine from Flying.
I have a couple.
Tiny Battle or whoever is the
It's fun.
publisher.
It's fun magazine, man.
I mean, it looks like a festive experience. I can tell you that.
Festive.
The graphic design is festive. I kind of agree with this. I don't know why, unless somebody, and you know, the irony is that if they had been at Origins this year, I was actually going to pick up a copy of Melee and Wizard, just the small boxes, just to kind of fiddle with that. But they weren't there, so I didn't. So Steve, you don't have my $20 that you could have had if you'd only come to Origins. So this is absolutely true. I have to start a role-playing magazine, a far more lucrative field. Well, there's some aspects of tabletop RPGs are really booking right now, but a lot of that growth is really limited to a pretty small number of content creators and game systems, right? D&D's really taken off. Hasbro's thrilled with the way it's doing, apparently. But just because it doesn't have any errata doesn't mean there weren't any errors in it. Different Worlds magazine is technically still alive. They just haven't done an issue in like 30 years. You can actually... It was an RPG magazine. You could go to their website today and order back issues, along with a variety of other stuff from publishers that were active back in the day, like Game Lords. So I actually bought some stuff from them a couple of years ago, I think. But they're technically still around. Tadashi Ahara is the same guy that's been running it the whole time. So this is fair. We don't have there's not a real culture of criticism here in wargaming, to be honest. Really, I think the biggest voice that was trying to achieve that was actually Richard Berg with Berg's Review of Games. But then that voice was so idiosyncratic that a lot of people just, ignored him, right? And of course, now nobody wants to read written reviews anymore. So,
it's a shame because everybody has to go to the bathroom. You read your magazine while you're having a poop.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, man.
Yeah.
So you read your reviews there.
Right, or watch the video reviews, right?
Ah, Christ.
I mean, the only place, I mean, I don't think, although if you look on Board Game Geek, there's a decent number of written reviews for war games, but you'll look at it and notice they're all like 7, 8, 9, 11 years old. Nobody really seems to be doing much of that anymore. You're seeing other types of content and ARs and analysis and stuff, but you're not really seeing a lot of review content. Most people, and including many critics, don't understand the purpose of criticism. So, and I've talked about this before. I'm not going to point on that, but
criticism is good. If you're a grown-up, criticism is good.
It's not that kind of criticism. That's the problem, is people think of it as they conflate it with the common meaning of the term criticism. So, I don't normally have my tablet and my I do most of my like rules reading and stuff on my tablet, not at the table. I
Yeah,
tend to strongly prefer a paper rule book at the table. Uh,
absolutely,
but
absolutely.
although it's nice to have the electronic version too, so you can like do searches and stuff. If OneDrive hadn't cocked that up, for example. Um, Now, there's some errata in the boxed edition that wasn't in the original magazine version. And the magazine version was out of print. That's why they did a version. So I'm not sure the narrative quite fits here, Stigler, if you know what I'm saying. Although I believe your opinion of Desert Fox Deluxe is already on record. So this is true. I was reading a lot of ebooks on my phone when I was commuting on the bus, actually.
Oh, man.
Hell, I read all of Chandler's campaigns of Napoleon while commuting on the bus. So over the course of quite a while, because it's not that small of a book.
I don't know. I'm old school, man. I like paper. I want to hold it, man.
Well, when we're talking, I feel you on that. I mean, when we're talking about the game, I mean, I totally feel that way. I will always choose to have the physical game, even if it turns out I'm going to end up playing it on Vassal. But for just the reading material, which is what I would be getting out of a magazine that doesn't have a game in it, I'm fine with having it electronically.
John, where is he? John, my poops are good and they don't smell. All right.
As we've established. So I'm a little confused by this. Is it the case that all the people who said Desert Fox Deluxe in the magazine was fantastic and they liked it, did none of them play it? I'm just confused because the reception to it seems to have been pretty positive, and that's why we ended up with a box version in the first place. So I'm just wondering what the story is on that, not having the background myself, even though the game is sitting right here.
When did it come out, that game? When did that game come out?
So the box edition is dated 2019, but the magazine, I'm just going to hold it right here for the rest of the video. The magazine came out in S&T number 300. So I'm gonna have to put all this stuff away afterwards. This is a good point. I have not. Maybe folks got impressed by the large number of maps in it. I mean, that is the thing that happens, right? Why did anybody buy their version of War in the Pacific, for instance? It's as close to unplayable as any game I've ever seen. And I'm aware that there are a couple groups of folks who have claimed to have played it, but
Mark Herman's game.
No, War in the Pacific. Mark Herman's game is Pacific War.
What excuse me?
Right. No, that's been played. Pacific War has been definitively been played. I can vouch for that. So this I can tell you is correct. Actually, the decision is real bad about this. In fact, sometimes they'll make a new printing and introduce new problems. Example, is it here? Yes, it is here. I'm not getting another game off the shelf. D-Day at Omaha Beach, first for John Butterfield game. Excellent game, by the way. Highly recommend.
Excellent.
First edition's got some errata, right? They do a second printing. They fix the errata. They do a third printing with a fancy mounted map and all the other stuff. They bring all the mistakes that were fixed by the errata in the second printing back from the first printing. All the errata returns, and they have to provide errata counters because some of the counters are messed up. It's like, who organizes this clusterfuck exactly? So, decision games, mark of quality right there.
Wait. Christopher, I used to do that. I used to do that for free.
So SPI's War in the Pacific is less unplayable than the Decision Games remake of it, for one thing. It's literally right here, right? So, it's less unplayable, and there's also a decent number of scenarios. You don't have to necessarily play the entire 6-map thing. Scenario setups, let's say I've had to set up the Gauss Atlantic Wall scenario out of the original Gauss Atlantic Wall rulebook, and the scenario setups were an absolute fiasco. Referencing fic that uses unclear nomenclature, and inconsistent nomenclature, references to units that aren't there in the game that literally are like errata counters that came out 2 years later. It was a mess. And that's for the introductory scenario that I just like absolutely shit the bed on it. It was an absolutely terrible experience. It's actually quite a terrible introductory scenario as well. I am not sure how prevalent this is in wargaming. There's absolutely people that buy RPG books for this, because the RPG books are often, fun to read, right? There's cool world building in it and often cool art, right? I've never really heard a wargamer say, I'm really into this game. It's just for reading the books and the cool art. I don't know that that's particularly prominent for wargamers. What I will say that I think is relatively common is wargamers that just buy games and put them on the shelf and maybe try and resell them 10 years later. That's a thing that happens. And then sometimes Carl gets just tired of having all this stuff and gives it all to them. Oh, that reminds me. Hold on, I got to show you this.
I'm one of those guys, but I don't resell them. One day I will play them. Man, you know what I'm saying?
I bought the stamp. It was like $20 with a discount code from Vistaprint. So anything that I have no intention of getting rid of is getting the stamp. Okay, there's also folks over. I mean, I feel like this statement has the potential to give folks the wrong impression about the reality of the way wargaming publication works nowadays. It's not like there's a Decision Games office building in Bakersfield, California, where they all go to work every day, right? There's 2 people that work in that building, Doc and Callie. And if there's even a building, I'm not clear that there's a building. They don't really even have that much in the way of inventory, although there is also Desert Fox Games or whatever that's called. Everybody's working as essentially as freelancers, right? So the idea of a few designers over at DG, those same designers are probably doing work for other publishers as well. John Butterfield, who's done some of the best things that Decision has in print right now, for example, is working with a variety of other publishers, including GMT and Compass. So, there's like nothing resembling an in-house designer nowadays, unless the in-house designer is also the guy that owns the company, as is the case with Worthington, for instance. The case with Revolution Games, although he hasn't done a lot in recent years. A couple other examples like that, and these are all real small outfits, right? I don't really understand how things work at certain companies, let's put it that way, in such a way as to produce the output that they actually produce. Hey, and I don't want to turn this into a bitch fest, right?
Well, I wanted to ask you something. You mentioned John Butterfield and Decision Games, games like Omaha Beach,
which is a fabulous game. RAF is a fabulous game.
Why wouldn't he pitch that to GMT?
So in the case of RAF, that may not even have been possible. That game was originally released by West End back in the late 80s or early 90s. Right. And I don't know what the chain of custody on those rights look like.
I see.
It could be that Decision bought them from West End, who, the shoe guy that owned West End Games, in a moment of desperation when his shoe business was failing. So, but DD at Omaha Beach, as far as I'm aware, leans on an earlier game. I want to say that there's a Dieppe game that appeared in S&T a couple of years before the boxed Omaha game came out, and it was based on that system. I'd have to look the game up to make sure that was John Butterfield too. I believe that it was.
So what? Decision Games owns the system, the license to that. So John Butterfield has to publish it with Decision Games.
That's not clear to me that would be the case. But you know, he may have said to himself, "Hey, they published the last one, you know, that was similar to this. Let's talk to them first about publishing the next one," which turned out to be Day at Omaha Beach, which is a game that's gone through several printings now and has been, I think, a pretty big success for Decision. And it's an excellent game. They have a number of excellent products. You just, you know, caveat emptor, as we used to say in Latin class. So, yes. So this is a thing that's true, right? So Decision, you may have noticed, if you pay a lot of attention, you may have noticed the Decision Games pipeline, other than the magazines, has slowed way down over the last 3 years or so. And I think that is because they're trying to pay more attention to quality control with Doug at the wheel on that. And I think that's been somewhat successful from what I've seen so far. So, you know, let's hope that they can turn it around and set up an actual editorial pipeline and processes by which these things can get a wee bit of polish before they get released. Now, Decision's issues, of course, that they've always been beholden to that magazine printing schedule. The magazine games are never going to get away from being rushed. That's just the way it is. Operation Jubilee is the game I'm talking about, actually. This is true. So there's 4 games in the series out right now from Decision. As David mentions here, there's D-Day at Omaha Beach, Tarawa, and Palelu. Those are the John Butterfield ones. And then they did Iwo Jima, which was Joe Youst, and I guess made some system changes. I like Joe as a designer. I like Joe a little, and I love Joe as a map artist. I like Joe a little less as a rules writer. Let me put it that way. So, having struggled through those DOS rule books, but you know, I've heard that once you kind of work with the problem with Iwo Jima, it actually works okay as well. Why would you need this? I don't understand. I'm a little unclear as to why you would need this.
I know. I don't understand. What's the connection?
Unless you're going to like play out all the RAF stuff tactically using Skies Above Britain. I guess you could do that.
But I mean, it's GMT and Decision Games. What's the connection?
I don't know. It's not a John Butterfield. Skies Above Britain is not a John Butterfield game.
No, it's not.
So
it's a Jerry White, Gina Willis.
Yes. Yes. Hold on. I have an incoming communicade from Jim Ozarski. Apparently not, Jim. We got to check this. You know, when transmissions come from the Emperor, you got to respond to them right away.
Respect!
Sorry, this is a private Grog of the Year conference.
Ah, for God's sake. I thought you were going to share it with us.
It's not important. So this is fair, right? RAF is a fabulous game.
Yeah, but the licensing issues here, Carl.
Well,
licensing.
You have some flexibility around that, though. I mean, you can say, hey, if you're going to use this with RAF, try these things. You're not like creating it as a supplement for RAF or anything like that. So,
yeah,
can't get enough water right now. He might send you to so he might send you to the front lines. Is what he's more likely to do, actually.
You know, he's playing World War II games these days instead of Napoleonic games.
Oh, he's still playing Napoleonics games. So yeah, well, I don't know what the like. I mean, if John Butterfield says it's okay, then I'm going to take it as okay too.
Yeah.
I don't. And
Let's go to court.
if I were doing that, I would want to vet it with the original.
Let's
designer.
go to court. Where is it on paper?
I don't think that'd be decision doing that if it was anybody, right? And I don't know what their arrangement with their designers is. Those rights may reside with John Butterfield for all I know. That makes perfect sense. That wouldn't really be particularly weird the way this business works. I just don't know, and nobody's talking about that. So I have actually seen the Napoleonic hoodies, and I'm it's not impossible. My wife would end up buying me one, which I would totally wear to a game convention and
just
nowhere
hope she's
else.
Listening. Just hope she's listening.
Oh, she knows how flaky I am, so it's all good. She knows better than anybody. Yeah, I personally, this sounds interesting, but I mean, I feel like if you like played out the entire Battle of Britain that way, you might not finish. So I don't know that I think that's super practical, but it's certainly a neat idea. And it's the kind of thing you hear people talk about is like, hey, I'm going to play great campaigns of the American Civil War, but then I'm going to fight out the battles using great battles of the American Civil War. And you swiftly run into problems where, hey, I haven't got the pieces for this. So, because there was no battle fought here historically, nor a battle fought with these forces. So, you know, this really depends on who has the rights, right? It could be that if on a deceased designer who has clear title to the rights, or whose estate has clear title to the rights, that the cost might be trivial. You might be talking to the guy that owns the rights from Digest Group too, where he thinks the Digest Group rights are worth like $1 million, and that guy's on dope. So it just depends, right? Some people have really unrealistic ideas about what this kind of IP is worth. So in a lot of cases, I mean, this should be the case in many cases. You know, particularly an IP that's been sitting around for a long time. Don't ask randos on the internet like us for advice on IP law. So my standard disclaimer when we say this. But the fact is that you don't really need the rights, right? You're unless you're buying the title and the specific expression of the rules, and chances are you're not, because you'd have to redo it anyway. So you can absolutely take. Somebody could have done this. Somebody could have taken Nick Karp's Vietnam game, completely changed the name to something else, changed it to Paint It Black or whatever, and redone all the graphics, rewritten the rule book from scratch, and legally there's be nothing the original rights holders could have done, because you can't copyright the rules. You can only copyright the writing. You could in theory patent the rules, but in practice it's really rare for game mechanics to get a patent.
So then what's the problem with Hasbro keeping all these old Avalon Hill games?
The real problem there is that Hasbro does, I mean, there's a bit of marketing value in saying old Avalon Hill or SPI title, right? And in fact, some of those games are really good titles. Not the games necessarily, they might be too, but some of those titles are really catchy. The Guns of August, it's a great title. It's a great box cover too, for that matter. The War in Europe, it's a great title, very clean, tells you exactly what it's about. It's about a war in Europe, right? Terrible Swift Sword. The Battle Hymn of the Republic has been mined over and over again, and all the best pieces of it have already been taken, right? These are great titles, and a lot of great titles are taken. In many cases, they're based on famous books or famous songs or whatever. People want to be able to market that based on the title. So, and maintaining patents is expensive as well. Again, don't take IP advice from randos on the internet. If you want to do this, go consult a copyright attorney. I have no knowledge of this situation, but I don't doubt that that's, this kind of thing comes up from time to time. Very impractical. This would be a very impractical task, I can tell you that. I'm not even sure this would even work, to be honest.
Well, no, hold on a second. The Hunters, Silent War. Look, Greg Smith is a Compass
whatever
game.
you're thinking of, Mister Greg Smith is working on it already. So
well, Greg Smith is working with Compass Games, and these are all Compass game titles. So
they're not.
Well, what?
The Hunters originally Consim Press, I believe recent printings that just say GMT on the bottom.
Really, Consim Press, and who owns Consim Press, and who works for
Consim Press was John Kranz, or is John
who
Kranz? I just don't know that
Consim
Press is really a thing that is operating anymore.
And who works with Compass?
John, but
there you go. Thank you very much.
Hunters and Silent Victory are GMT titles. I'm just saying.
Yeah, man.
I just don't think. I think I think there's a huge mechanical disconnect between Steel Wolves and the Hunters. I think you'd have to create what would look like an entire new game of interface between the two to make it work. Cute idea. This is an idea that.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
Best rule writer in the world.
Well, not that I'm going to argue with that, but what I'll say is that his games have really amazingly well presented rules, and that's not just writing. Writing is only one of the pieces that go into that. The presentation, the structure. Look at Atlantic Chase is the best example. It's the most marvelously presented game I can think of in probably ever in war games, to be honest. It's a real marvel of presentation.
I would put music to your words right now to elevate the emotion.
The rule book's really well written, but the fact that the rule book is well written is only one of the things that give it that amazing presentation, right? It's also structurally completely I don't know what the fuck he's even doing over there.
I'm telling
structurally, it's completely different rule book style than we see out of most war game rule books. Now that can be bad. I'm reading the Labatai Premier rules right now. They are structurally very unlike any other wargaming rule book, and they're an absolute fiasco to read.
I know. Jeremy White there, best rules I've ever read, ever.
So, I mean, Combat Commander's got a really well-written rule book too. So, and I think
there's ambiguity.
Well, I've never had whatever else bad I have to say about Combat Commander. Ambiguity coming up during play was not a problem that I had.
That's because you don't have my mind.
Oh, that's definitely true.
Yes.
So, because you don't either. So,
it's good.
He's drinking the yeah. So after my conversation with Eric Holmgren, I was like, yeah, maybe I need to check out the Premier rules, which look promising, and they don't necessarily look that complicated, but the style of writing where it's got this sort of really weird Dumasian prose. It's super weird. So Butterfield's rules tend to be very good. Did you pre-order the new John Butterfield game on P500?
Which one?
Away team.
Oh yeah, I'm psyched. I will.
Well, if you get your order in early, it won't make any difference. So you might as well just wait.
For what are you talking about?
Well, GMT doesn't ship you your games in order that people ordered them. They ship.
I know, but John Butterfield it will ship.
I have no reason to be not confident in that.
It's funny. Any John Butterfield game, it's like a Mark Herman game. You just do it. You just buy it. What are you doing, man?
It's the other John Butterfield Battle of Britain game.
I got that too.
So it's an interesting looking game. I don't know I don't know that it's necessarily better than RAF, but
No, I think it's a prelude too.
it might be in the same sense that I think the Burning Blue is a bit of an answer to RAF because it came out after the original RAF at least, and I've got that too. So I'm
What is the
basically
Burning
covered.
Blue?
The Burning Blue is is it a Lee Brimacum wood design? It might be.
I don't have that.
It's from GMT. It's the GMT game on the operational air game on the Battle of Britain.
I don't have
It
it.
looks really neat. This is one of those games that I got Vocoed on, meaning I saw Voco playing it, and I'm like, oh shit, I gotta have that. Yeah, it is a Lee Brimacum wood game.
Is it still available?
No. You could get one for the low price of $100 American on BGG Marketplace right now. I believe that is $2,625,000 Canadian dollars. So, is there anything in the same space as RAF? There's really very little.
It's a great game.
You know what? There's two games that are in the same space as RAF, and
it's
they're
a beautiful game.
They're right here.
Yeah, they're both John Butterfield
designs.
Yeah,
because they're games you could play solitaire as either side or play it 2-player.
The guy's beautiful. He's like slippers. He's like your comfy underwear. He's John Butterfield, man. He's what it is.
John Butterfield is an excellent designer.
Yes,
I agree.
Yeah,
who has consistently done amazing games like Freedom.
Amazing. I love the guy.
So,
and you know what? He's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. He
seems like a nice guy. I've seen some interviews with him. I've never met him or talked to him though.
He's a nice guy. I got drunk with the guy. He's nice.
I thought that was Mark Herman.
Both.
Okay. I thought you got drunk with Mark and the guys for the Players Aid.
That too.
Okay. And John Butterfield was like in there too somewhere?
Beforehand.
The story seems a little fluid, to be completely honest.
I'm telling you, I was there.
Look, I'm not sure you were there, Dan.
Maybe.
Luftwaffe is an iconic game. Does it really hold up? Maybe not. But it is an iconic game. A lot of people's first war game. It's relatively easy. If you really want the copy and you're willing to be a little bit patient, I'm guessing you can get a copy for $5.
I was going to say $10.
So, well, maybe 10 nowadays, but it used to be a $5 game. Universe is an interesting game. It's got some interesting ideas. I'm not sure it quite all holds together, but it does have some really interesting ideas in it. Brent McCabe, how much game time do you do in a week playing the games? All the podcast time, much time. So I until relatively recently was doing 2 live game nights a week, at which we would probably spend 4 hours a night, which is comparable to the amount of time I was putting into the channel. But then that changed because we moved, and then I got fucking COVID. So,
Well, I'm reading the American Tank Ace rules.
Good.
And Charioteer rules.
A lot of folks playing American Tank Ace at Compass Expo.
Yeah, and no, it's fun. And I'm wondering when he's going to put out the Tiger Ace.
So I know that I don't know what it's going to be called. But I know that he had. So I took pictures of this. Greg Smith literally had 37 prototype games at Compass Expo, right? And I'm pretty sure he designed and made the playtest kits for 8 of them there at Compass Expo. Okay, so he had. I didn't even keep track of them. I took pictures because I wasn't going to remember. I know he's got German Tank Ace, Soviet Tank Ace. I think there's a Japanese Tank Ace in there because apparently there was one Japanese Tank Ace. There's probably a Chinese Tank Ace somewhere in the pipeline. There's probably a French Tank Ace and an Italian Tank Ace and a Finnish Tank Ace. and a
Well,
British tank case.
you know, you can have World War I and World War II in that. You know what I'm saying? So you double your trouble. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I'm just saying all the tank aces will be represented in the fullness of time.
Well, I mean,
So-
just in the German realm, you can have Stug tank ace. You can have Elephant tank ace.
You really
You
want
can
a
have-
separate box game for each different kind of tank?
Absolutely.
No, I don't think that. And fortunately, Greg is smarter than either of us and when it comes to this stuff. So I have every confidence that despite my kind of recent determination to unload and divest myself of most solitaire games, that Greg will continue to produce excellent design after excellent design in this space.
That's funny. That's funny. You're funny.
Case. Yeah, you got to rotate the turret by hand with the crank. So, and there's no radio. So,
oh man.
So, and I believe there's a post-war Hungarian tank case coming too. So,
hey, look, don't put it past me, okay? It might happen.
But yeah, he's also doing another Tide Gate System series game this time on the Civil War. So that was, I believe that was its debut playtest sessions were held at Compass Expo as well.
Look, I mean, Gregory Smith's got a good system happening, and he should exploit it. Just
well,
like
he's got more than one, right? The Tide system, which is what we're calling it, Pacific Tide, Imperial Tide, so on and so forth, is also got a decent number of fans for folks who want, kind of lighter two-player games. So Greg's not, carving out a kind of a huge space in the whole hobby, to be honest about it.
And good for Greg.
So yeah, and the Western Front Ace actually looks pretty cool, and that one I might pick up. That actually sounds pretty neat. That's the World War I air solo game.
By the way, in American Tank Ace or American Tank, I forget what it's called. What is it called?
American Tank Ace?
Yeah. Did you see my name in the credits? Did you see my name in the credits spelled wrongly? But it's me.
I got a confession to make. I told him to spell it wrong. Thanks, Greg. Much appreciated. I owe you
I'm in the credits. I'm in the credits.
Did he spell your name Dan Pinocchio or something?
No,
Dan
he spelled
Panchesi
Dan Pancali or something, or Pancaloli. It's me. It's me.
Dan Pangiatelli, playtester. I thought we were over this shtick, to be honest. I thought we already moved past
it's an ongoing thing, man.
So the best one, though, was the one that I couldn't keep straight, resulting in the blooper reel. Dan Pancetta, that's right. I think I totally used that too. I ran out of weird Italian cheeses starting with a P after a relatively short amount of time, and I had to move on to Italian cured meats. So it was actually Greg that originally gave me the idea to start with that shtick, by the way, because then he did the hey, I'm this Welcome to No Enemies Here intro, which you recorded with him, and he mispronounced your name, and I'm like, oh, that's it. His name's never getting pronounced correctly again. This is going to be a permanent thing.
Oh, that's ridiculous, man. I'm in the game. I decided where a bar fight would be 50-50.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. I don't know that. I think you could actually go and read memoirs of German tankers and American tankers from the Second World War and kind of distill those two experiences down and get something different where quantitatively you might naively think this would be the case. But I don't necessarily think a designer would do that. It's an interesting question that I think we'll find out once the 75 volumes of the Tank Ace series are all out. So 13 of which were developed by Greg today.
It's all about where you want to be at that time. You want to be German, you want to be Japanese, you want to be Italian, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, look, prosciutto's very good. And the thing is that on
Oh, did I
Facebook,
tell you I had a prosciutto sandwich at Compass Expo?
and what was in the prosciutto sandwich?
Oh, it just the prosciutto and the lettuce, tomato, and some Italian dressing and some, oil and vinegar type
You
stuff.
see, Artie, if I was there, I would give you a karate chop right in the neck right now. Okay? Because the thing is, when you have a prosciutto sandwich, all you need is eggplants and oil, and that's it. Don't give me no goddamn tomatoes and no goddamn lettuce.
The Italians love tomatoes, Dan. We've
Fuck
established this.
tomatoes.
They weren't I'm pretty sure they weren't San Marzano tomatoes either.
No, they're
No,
not
this
going to
is
be.
a pretty good
San Martano, you make goddamn sauce with that.
There's there's a Nardelli's grinder shop right next door to the hotel, and everybody eats there at least once a day and is tired of it by Sunday, which is good because they're closed on Sunday. But it's very good. It's very good. They have a very good prosciutto sandwich, and their pastrami sandwich is pretty good too.
When you have a prosciutto sandwich, first of all, you better have the right bread. Second of all, you better
Their bread's
have,
pretty good.
and you better have an oiled vegetable like eggplants, and that's it.
Why would you want an oiled vegetable?
And that's it.
The prosciutto is awfully rich on its own, right? It's
No,
a high
it
fat.
ain't because they're cheap bastards. They're only going to put a 2 or 3 slices of prosciutto. Nah, screw them.
No, there was like a quarter pound of prosciutto on this stuff.
Yeah, that was shit prosciutto.
No, I thought it was pretty decent. I don't know. I can't taste anything right now, so don't ask.
That's the problem.
Me. I had pretty good scotch last night. Couldn't taste a fucking thing. So it tasted like it was like drinking weirdly textured water. So,
oh man,
the bread is the most important single component of any sandwich.
Absolutely.
So the Italians and the French understand this. The Germans make good bread, but they don't understand this.
Look, Christopher, let me tell you something. You're in Ontario. In Ontario, it ain't Saputo. Saputo's the mob in Italy, in Montreal. In Ontario, you have, I forget what the hell the mob is. It's a different mob, different cheese.
You're saying it's mafia cheese?
No shit.
Is that like government cheese? Welfare cheese?
Whatever.
So anyway. All right, folks, we are over time. I would like to thank everybody. As predicted, we talked about War Game magazines for exactly 3.5 minutes and fucked around for the next 27.5. So I'd like to thank you all for coming. Tune in next week on my channel for more mindless babbling. And tune in to Dan's show on Saturday. Everybody have a great night.
Oh, yeah, hold on a second. I wanted to say that Lock and Load Publishing has a wicked sale happening. 3-in-1 mega goddamn sale. 50% off. Use the code. Get it right. Go on their website. And that's all.
Commiserations, David. I apologize. I didn't. It's not my fault.
What's the matter with this guy, David Thompson?
He's got the COVID now, too.
Oh, for God's sake.
He probably got it out being an international man of mystery or something.
I love that. I love that.
I got it in Connecticut hanging out with a bunch of hairy gamers.
And he's handsome, too.
Well, that's until he's disfigured by the COVID.
Good night.
He's going to be forced to wear a leper's mask from now on.
Good night. I don't know what's going on, or it's going on. Whatever's going on, it's going on. What's going on? You know what's going on. I know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. It's the Artie and Danny Show.